What if the most dangerous thing you can actually do for your own survival is, well, to adapt?
Ooh, that is a heavy question to start with.
Right, but think about it. We are taught from a very early age that getting used to things is this ultimate human superpower.
Oh, absolutely. It's praised constantly.
Exactly. But there is a phrase, a specific combination of words you have undoubtedly heard that weaponizes this exact ability.
And we hear it all the time.
We really do. It goes like this: everyone suffers out there.
Yeah, and it's always delivered with this terrifying, almost clinical level of calm.
Yes. It is the ultimate conversation killer. I mean, the moment someone drops that line into a discussion about, say, burnout or a miserable relationship, it basically functions as a shutdown protocol.
Right, it just stops the conversation dead in its tracks.
It's treated not as a tragedy, but as a baseline law of physics. It's like this undeniable truth that you and everyone else are simply supposed to swallow without a second thought.
Because treating suffering as a baseline, well, it forces an immediate psychological pivot. You transition from analyzing your environment to merely absorbing it.
You just take it all in.
Exactly. You start asking, how do I fix this pain? And instead you start asking, how do I make myself smaller so the pain doesn't hit me as hard?
Oh, wow. Making yourself smaller. And that bizarre, silent absorption of pain is the foundation of today's deep dive.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is. We are looking at a translated essay that has been circulating online. It's titled Van Banduk Den.
Which roughly translates to pasted text or copied text.
Yeah, exactly. It's likely an anonymous drop on a forum somewhere. But the ideas within it are just profound. This source completely unpacks the underlying philosophy and really the psychology of why human beings are so incredibly efficient at normalizing their own misery.
It essentially acts as a philosophical mirror. The author isn't just complaining about modern life.
Right.
They're demanding that you look at the very fabric of what you consider a normal existence and ruthlessly interrogate it.
Which brings us to the explicit mission for this deep dive. We want to help you, the person listening to this right now, figure out if you are quietly tolerating unacceptable things in your own life.
Things you probably shouldn't be tolerating.
Exactly. We are talking about your career trajectory, your romantic partnerships, or even just your baseline daily stress. Are you enduring these things because they are genuinely unavoidable?
Or simply because you have completely forgotten you have the option to question them.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. The essay starts by diagnosing a fundamental glitch in human psychology, which is our immense capacity for adaptability.
Yeah, and dangerous is actually the operative word the text uses to describe this trait.
Dangerous. Not helpful, but dangerous.
Exactly, because from an evolutionary biology standpoint, human beings are wired to normalize their environment as rapidly as possible to conserve cognitive energy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, so if you are dropped into a harsh, freezing climate, your brain cannot afford to be in a constant state of shock.
You'd just panic and die.
Precisely. It immediately begins attempting to make that harsh environment feel routine, so you can focus on finding food and shelter. The brain just edits out the constant alarm bells.
Which sounds incredibly useful if you are wandering the tundra, but the essay provides these highly specific, honestly painfully modern examples of where this energy-saving mechanism goes entirely wrong.
Yeah, the real-world applications are rough.
They really are. It details the person working 12-hour days every single day, living in a permanent buzzing state of adrenal exhaustion.
Or the person who is perpetually terrified about making rent despite never actually taking a single day off.
Yes, or the example that really stood out to me, the person in a relationship who can actively feel themselves shrinking.
Oh, that one is devastating.
It is. They are suppressing their own needs day after day simply to keep the peace and avoid an argument.
And the real tragedy there is the label we apply to those situations.
What do you mean?
Well, because chronic exhaustion, financial panic, and shrinking in relationships are so statistically common in our modern society, they just get categorized as normal.
Ah, right. We just accept it.
Yeah. The essay introduces the Stoic philosopher Epictetus to explain the danger of that exact categorization.
Okay, bring in the Stoics.
Epictetus argued that human beings are not merely affected by the objective reality of their circumstances, we are profoundly governed by our interpretation of those circumstances.
It reminds me of olfactory fatigue.
Olfactory fatigue. Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, the phenomenon where you walk into a kitchen where someone just burned a piece of fish?
Oh, yes, it's the absolute worst.
Exactly. The smell is violently offensive. It hits you like a physical wall. But if you are forced to sit in that kitchen for 20 minutes, your brain steps in and just edits the smell out.
Right. You literally stop smelling.
Yes, you didn't crack a window, you didn't scrub the stove, the air is still entirely filled with smoke, but your brain decided, well, this is our baseline reality now. Might as well stop processing the odor.
That is a perfect analogy. The objective reality of the room remains completely toxic, but your perception mutates to tolerate it.
It just deletes the warning signal entirely.
Exactly.
But, let me push back on this premise for a second.
Sure.
Isn't that olfactory fatigue, that adaptability, fundamentally necessary? I mean, life is full of unavoidable tragedies.
That is very true.
We all face illness, loss, genuinely hard times. If we couldn't edit out the smell of the burned fish to some degree, if we felt the acute shock of every hardship at maximum volume forever, we would completely break down.
We wouldn't be able to function.
Right. So adaptability is what keeps us moving forward, isn't it?
What's fascinating here is that the source text doesn't deny the utility of adaptability in a crisis. It acknowledges it as a vital survival tool for unavoidable tragedies.
Okay, so it agrees with that part.
It does. But the text warns that this exact same evolutionary tool tricks us into accepting conditions we absolutely possess the power to change.
I see.
We alter our internal perspective. We numb ourselves because it feels easier in the short term than actually altering the external situation.
Wow. We learn to live with the poison rather than synthesizing a cure.
Exactly.
We adapt to the symptoms so we don't have to fight the disease. And, if this were solely an individual psychological glitch, if it were just one person sitting alone in a smoky kitchen, you could just pull them aside, point it out, and fix it.
But it's not just one person.
No, it's not. The essay takes this concept a massive step further into the realm of sociology. It asks, well, what happens when an entire collective, an entire corporate culture or society normalizes that suffering?
And collective normalization is where this mechanism goes from an individual quirk to a systemic danger.
It gets much bigger.
It does. When every single person around you is experiencing the exact same baseline misery, the default explanation just becomes, that's just society. Or, that's the real world.
Which is so dismissive.
The essay makes a crucial point about those phrases. They're completely devoid of solutions. They function entirely as societal muzzles.
Muzzles. That's a strong word.
Yeah, they exist to enforce tribal cohesion by demanding that everyone stop asking questions.
And you can see the economic utility of that for the people in charge. The essay highlights the modern workplace as ground zero for this.
Oh, absolutely. The workplace is the perfect example.
Burning yourself out isn't just normalized there, it is actively weaponized as a badge of honor. It is treated as the ultimate metric of dedication.
Like, oh, you slept under your desk. You're a hero.
Exactly. The employee who stays at their desk until 9 p.m. every night is the company hero. Meanwhile, the person who attempts to establish a basic human boundary, say, leaving at 5 p.m. to raise their children, is immediately framed as lacking ambition or commitment.
They're seen as not being a team player.
Right. And over a long enough timeline, the entire workforce genuinely believes that absolute physical and mental depletion is a mandatory prerequisite for success.
You mentioned tribal cohesion earlier, and that's exactly the underlying mechanism at play here.
How so?
If one person stands up and says, this 9 p.m. work culture is destroying our health, they aren't just critiquing a policy. No, they are threatening the shared reality of the group. The group has to attack that boundary setter, or else confront the terrifying possibility that their own sacrifices were entirely pointless.
Oh, I see. So essentially, a social norm isn't necessarily established because it is logically sound or morally right or even productive.
Not at all.
It is established simply through sheer, unquestioned repetition. If enough people do a damaging thing for long enough, the damage itself becomes the standard.
Marcus Aurelius observed this exact phenomenon 2 millennia ago.
Really? 2,000 years ago?
Yeah. He wrote extensively about how easily human beings are swept up by the unexamined habits of the crowd. When a behavior achieves a critical mass, the human brain inherently assumes it must be logical. Otherwise, why would everyone be doing it?
It's an ultimate peer pressure.
Exactly. And the essay pairs this with a brilliant, honestly chilling example of intergenerational justification.
Oh, the part about young people entering the workforce.
Yes. A young adult enters a highly stressful, arguably toxic corporate environment and points out the glaring flaws.
They come in with fresh eyes.
Right. They note the inefficiency, the cruelty, the toll on mental health, and the inevitable reply from the older, established generation is simply, we had it worse.
Which is such a fascinating psychological defense mechanism.
It really is.
Because if the older generation admits the young person is right, that the suffering is unnecessary, they have to simultaneously admit that their own decades of suffering were also unnecessary. It's just massive cognitive dissonance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that dismissive phrase we had, it worse, actually performs a dark sociological function.
What does it do?
It transforms past trauma into a mandatory standard that future generations must maintain. It invalidates the rational observation of the newcomer and replaces it with a mandate to endure.
Just keep suffering because we did.
Exactly. The philosopher Seneca was acutely aware of this trap. He explicitly warned that we consistently follow the crowd, assuming there is safety in numbers, completely ignoring the fact that the crowd might be marching straight off a cliff.
Wow, following them right off the edge. Which brings us to the most devastating question posed by the text.
The long-term cost?
Yes. If an individual naturally adapts to their own misery to save cognitive energy, and then society actually applauds them for doing it, rewarding them for their silence, well, what is the ultimate cost to the human soul over 20 or 30 years?
It's immense.
You can't just run that suppression program for decades without breaking something fundamental inside a person.
No, you can't.
Well,
And the author describes the combination of that long-term process as the existential drop.
the existential drop.
Yeah, and the truly terrifying characteristic of the existential drop is its imperceptible speed. It does not happen overnight. It is a glacial erosion of your internal alarm system.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The essay traces the psychological timeline of a worker in that toxic, hyper-competitive environment.
The timeline is so telling.
Right. So on day one, the new employee feels the injustice acutely. They see the backstabbing, the unreasonable demands, the subtle disrespect, and their gut just screams that this is not how human beings are meant to interact.
They fight against it internally.
Exactly. But cut to month 6, the outrage turns into fatigue.
They're just tired.
And cut to year 5, that same worker witnesses something deeply unethical or cruel, and they just shrug their shoulders, grab another coffee, and call it adult life.
The shock is entirely worn off. They've completely internalized the toxicity.
It's just normal to them now.
And Epictetus provides the framework for why this is the ultimate tragedy. To the Stoics, the primary harm does not come from the external circumstance, the bad boss, or the stressful commute.
Where does it come from then?
The fatal injury to the soul comes from accepting that circumstance without resistance. The acceptance itself is the wound.
Oh, because by accepting it, you are actively participating in your own diminishment.
You are, and the text describes the end point of the existential drop as living in a half-awake state.
Half awake.
Yeah, people go to work, they pay their mortgages, they scroll through their phones, just going through the mechanical choreography of existence.
It's going through the motions.
Right, but they never stop to examine how they are living. The tragedy isn't just that they are enduring daily suffering, it is that they have suffered a profound loss of memory.
Loss of memory.
Yes, they have literally forgotten what peace, autonomy, or freedom even feels like. They think the suffocating pressure in their chest is just the natural weight of gravity.
That is such a haunting diagnosis. Living half awake, totally disconnected from the reality of your own pain, because you've just filed it away in the brain under Tuesday.
Tuesday, exactly.
So how on earth does a person wake up from that? I mean, if your own biology is editing out the smell of the smoke, and your society is telling you that smelling smoke means you're a hard worker, what breaks the spell?
That's a great question.
Does it require some catastrophic life crisis? A near-death experience?
Surprisingly, the essay argues that the wake-up call rarely arrives via grand philosophical epiphanies or massive tragedy.
Really? How does it happen then?
It almost always arrives through tiny, accidental moments of contrast.
Contrast, like catching a glimpse of a parallel universe where things are actually functioning properly.
Precisely. It is about exposure to an adjacent possibility. The essay gives incredibly grounded examples of this.
Like what?
Well, it's the realization that hits when you happen to collaborate with a different department at your company and you see a team working just as diligently, hitting all their metrics, but completely devoid of the crushing, soul-destroying exhaustion your team normalizes.
You see that it doesn't have to be miserable.
Exactly. Or, if you are that person shrinking in your romantic relationship, it is the quiet evening you spend at a friend's house, observing a couple who genuinely respect one another.
Oh.
You witness a partnership that doesn't demand constant one-sided sacrifice. And in a fraction of a second, the illusion of your own normalcy just cracks.
It shatters the baseline. You realize the way you've been living isn't a law of physics, it's just a really bad choice you got used to.
Those tiny moments of contrast serve as a harsh mirror. Seneca believed this is the entire point of philosophy.
Not the grand theories.
Right. It isn't about memorizing grand theories about the cosmos. It is about cultivating the clarity to see exactly how you are navigating your Tuesday morning.
Just seeing things clearly.
However, the text delivers a very stark warning. Waking up from the existential drop is a profoundly uncomfortable, often painful experience.
I imagine it brings a massive wave of grief.
It does.
Because the second you realize you don't have to put up with it, you are instantly confronted with the fact that you have been putting up with it. You have to mourn the 5 or 10 years you spent shrinking yourself for no good reason.
You have to face your own complicity in your suffering. This raises an important question, which actually forms the core of the Stoic strategy presented in the essay.
What's the question?
How do we stop being complicit? And the first step is recognizing where we confuse the concept of endurance with the concept of acceptance.
Let's break that down, because in modern conversation, those two words are used completely interchangeably.
They are, but in Stoicism, blending them together is a fatal error. Endurance is a necessary virtue.
Okay.
It is the act of navigating a difficulty that is fundamentally woven into the fabric of reality, something you truly cannot avoid or control. A terminal illness, the loss of a loved one, a natural disaster, or the sheer passage of time.
Things that just happen.
Yes, you must endure these things. Waging war against them is a complete waste of spirit.
But blind acceptance is different. Let me try to synthesize this with an analogy.
Go for it.
It's like mislabeling your files.
Okay, how so?
Well, the most dangerous thing you can do is take a file marked, things I can change, and you accidentally drop it into the folder labeled fate or unchangeable.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Because once it's in that folder, you stop trying. You literally stop looking for solutions because you've categorized it as a law of nature. It is like being a sailor on a ship caught in a massive storm. Endurance is looking at the 40-foot waves and the hurricane winds and accepting that you cannot control the ocean. You lax yourself to the mast and ride it out.
Right, you survive the storm.
But blind acceptance, what the essay is warning against, is noticing a gaping hole in the hull of your ship where water is pouring in and refusing to patch the leak because you've convinced yourself, well, I guess boats just take on water. That's the sailing life.
That is the perfect distinction. Blind acceptance is treating a fixable leak like it's a force of nature.
Exactly.
Epictetus built his entire philosophy on the dichotomy of control. That is the ruthless, daily practice of separating what is in our power from what is not. When you treat a toxic job or a disrespectful partner as an unavoidable hurricane, you surrender your agency.
You just give up.
You become a passive victim of circumstances. You actually possess the tools to change.
You miscategorize a choice as a fate.
And Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the goal of a well-lived life is not the eradication of all difficulties. A frictionless life does not exist.
We're always going to have problems.
Yes. The actual Stoic strategy is clarity. It is having the wisdom to separate the necessary suffering, the unavoidable storms, from the artificial suffering.
The artificial suffering.
The artificial suffering is the misery we keep on life support purely out of habit, fear of change, and social conditioning.
We are literally watering a dead plant and complaining that it won't bloom.
Exactly right.
Look, I want to speak directly to you as we wrap up this deep dive. Take a hard, objective look at the landscape of your own life right now. Are you feeling constantly drained by a career that demands your soul in exchange for a paycheck?
Are you shrinking?
Yes. Are you actively shrinking your personality in a relationship just to avoid friction? Or are you simply running out of breath in your daily routine, feeling perpetually behind in a race you didn't even want to enter?
These are the questions you have to ask.
Ask yourself how much of that pain is actually a necessary law of physics, and how much of it is just a habit that you've slapped the label of normal life onto. Because the human brain is remarkably good at forgetting it has a choice.
It really is.
So what does this all mean? It means that true freedom does not commence when your circumstances magically align and become perfect. Freedom begins the exact second you clearly identify the ropes that are actually tying you down. You cannot untie a knot you refuse to look at.
That's so true. And And I want to leave you with one final thought that builds on the essay's insights into social conformity.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this time exploring how the echo chamber pressures you to accept suffering, how the crowd desperately wants you to stay in line to validate their own choices. But consider the inverse of that dynamic.
The inverse.
Yes, if you do decide to wake up, if you patch the hole in the hull and outright reject that normal suffering, what happens to the people around you?
Oh, wow.
Your newfound boundaries, your absolute refusal to play the game of burnout, your demand to be spoken to with respect, your actions will inevitably act as a mirror for them. It will force your friends, your family, and your colleagues to look at their own unexamined misery.
That's powerful.
So the ultimate question is, are you prepared not just to liberate yourself, but to disrupt the comfortable numbness of everyone around you?
Everyone suffers out there, but you do not have to just sit in the kitchen and pretend you don't smell the smoke.